I want to talk about something tonight. I want to talk about how you have Brian Enton, Nancy Disgrace, Chris McDonough, and Ashley Banfield, and Anjanette Levy all talking at the same time about how Brian is being taunted in prison. I have one thing to say to that. They don't know crap. And another thing to say to that, why haven't they been calling out the absolute dysfunction in this investigation in the Idaho 4? They have not even talked one shred about how much of a botched investigation this is. Not one. For the past 2.5 years, all they talked about is Brian Koberger, Brian Koberger, Brian Koberger, Brian Koberger. That's all they've talked about the last 2.5 years. Instead of calling out the hypocrisy in this case. That's what I have a problem with. You have these people in mainstream media, MSM, all talking about the same thing about Brian Koberger, calling him a monster and a murderer and a coward and everything else. But over the last 2.5 years, you have not heard not one time how flawed this investigation was, how botched this investigation was, and how much an absolute train wreck this investigation was. You haven't heard that for 2.5 years, almost 3 years. It's all been fixated around Brian Koberger. That absolutely makes me sick to my stomach. When mainstream media will not call out the prosecution on their hypocrisy in the case. They've been so fixated with this guy. It's not even funny. The day he was arrested, they instantly, oh, he's guilty. He's guilty. He murdered these people. He's guilty. He's guilty. Why wouldn't they call out this investigation? Are they being paid by the state to keep this flawed investigation under wraps? It sure seems like it because over the last 3 days, you've had these people all come out with the exact same story. Brian Koberg is being taunted in prison. He's complaining to the guards that he can't sleep and this and that. And enough already. We know that these people hate Brian Koberger. Brian didn't even said it himself. He does not care that Brian is being taunted. We don't even know if he's being taunted. We don't know. We don't know if this is just a mainstream media lie to whip up a story, to whip up their revenue. Because it all comes back to one person, Chris McDonough. And two people, Ashley Banfield and Chris McDonough. They started this whole, but especially Chris McDonough. He started this whole O'Brien's being taunted and this and that, and he's complaining to the guards. For one, I don't think he's complaining to the guards, and for two, I don't think that these people are doing this to him, and for three, he was railroaded to begin with. He was railroaded. And why was he railroaded? Plea deal himself, Bill Thompson. Mr. Plea Deal. And it did not help the fact that this judge, Judge Hippler, railroaded Ann Taylor. Every single motion she'd put out, denied, 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 denied. Judge Hippler didn't want this case. He wanted this case to go to trial so he could get it off his hands. He's even said so himself. Well, I'd say it's nice to meet you, but I wouldn't want to tell the half truth. But people like Brian Enton and Nancy Grace and Ashley Banfield and Jeanette Levy, I can't stand these people. I can't. Nancy Grace, in the beginning of this investigation, bashed Brian every chance she got, and bashed Ann Taylor, and bashed his parents, and bashed his sisters. This man was railroaded. And then you got these MSM clowns out here spreading another damn narrative. Another narrative that he's complaining to the guards about being taunted and tormented. No, you don't know that. For all we know, he's not. For all we know, he's not. He's not being tormented by, by inmates. And freaking Chris McDonough, oh, they were waiting for him to come, to come to prison so they could target him. These people in prison have their own stuff that they want to do. They have their own stuff they need to think about, like taking care of their people in prison and taking care of the people on the outside. They're not going to sit back and wait for this guy to come into their pod. They're not getting paid hourly to do it. We want to talk about narratives. Let's talk about narratives. This insanely weak, flimsy police narrative. We heard for 2.5 years that they had the right person. They had the right person. We heard from the prosecution. They had a whole lot of evidence. Where'd that evidence go? Bill Thompson, the day the plea deal hearing, said that there was, he's been saying from day one, there was no motive. There was no connection between Mr. Koberger and the people that lived in the house. And he said in a recent interview that he doubts they will never figure a motive out. So what does that tell you? No motive, no connection to the crime. And you have these other yahoos saying that, like freaking Nancy Grace saying that he was raised in a controlled household and was programmed to go and commit these murders. How does she know that? That's another lie. Because she don't know what was going through his brain. Neither did one of our experts. Oh, he was raised to do this. He was raised to no. Were you in his brain as a baby? I doubt it. I doubt this expert was in his brain as a baby. And are we forgetting? I'm not attacking Dylan or Bethany, but are we forgetting these two girls sitting in a house 8 hours, not doing nothing to help? Even though Dylan says she didn't know what was going on, she was terrified. Will a terrified person be on Instagram at 4 something in the morning, be on her Indeed at 4 something in the morning, be on Snapchat sending and receiving messages at 4 something in the morning, calling and texting her mom and dad, just like Bethany, calling and texting her parents on Instagram? We're supposed to believe that Brian Koberger did all this, and you have two surviving roommates on social media for 8 hours? Oh my God. Were they that terrified that they would be on social media for 8 hours? They'd be checking their Indeed. And then Dylan says in her initial interview, she saw what she thought was a gun the perpetrator was carrying, or a arrow-shaped weapon. People have been wanting us to look at Brian Koberger for the last 2.5 years. But why hasn't people been looking at everything else in this case? The 2 cigarette butts the ISP found at the scene. That went nowhere. That went nowhere. And let's not forget about the internal bolo for a darker colored sedan. That Pullman in Moscow was passing back and forth as an internal bolo for either a dark colored sedan or a tan sedan. Where did that go? That bolo got buried because they found a white suspect vehicle one that they could pin. And that's exactly what they did. They pinned it on him because in their eyes, he was the odd person out, or the weirdo, or as what Nancy Gracie's calling him, which he's not, is an incel. He's not none of these things that the lamestream media keeps tagging him as. From the way I'm starting to see it, this is all a deflection from the mainstream media. They don't want us to see the actual hypocrisy in this case. They don't want us to see the fumbled investigation in this case. So they're shooting this stuff out in muzzle velocity, flooding the zone. to try to cover up for exactly how much of a weak case this was. A circumstantial evidence case. They might as well being paid by the state to cover stuff up and to label this guy as a murderer and a coward and weak, and he's complaining to the COs, which I don't think he'd do. And even these Moscow police documents that were dumped the same day as his sentencing, you read through those, this case is even more strange. It even screams even more like WTF. Like the night of the alcohol stop on Banfield, you have Rosendahl and his partner driving around Queen Road Apartments and seeing three people walking into the house of 1122. And then we find out in the initial interviews with Dylan that she had a friend over that night. And they were watching the Vampire Diaries. But it doesn't say whether the friend went home. It doesn't say if the friend stayed or if the friend went home. So my initial thinking is the friend more likely stayed. And if their friend stayed, what did the friend see? And I'm going to go back to it. Two surviving roommates, instead of calling 911 as soon as they saw the perpetrator, what they do for 8 hours? Social media, sending messages and receiving messages on Snapchat, TikTok. Why were they on TikTok? And then checking Indeed. I'm sorry, a quadruple homicide happened in your house, and you want to check a job placement app? I hope people see where I'm coming from. This was the worst investigation in true crime history. The worst. And of course, Dylan has uh, a GoFundMe, which is, I mean, she wants a GoFundMe, she can have a GoFundMe. It's none of my business, even though it irritates me a little bit. Over almost $100,000 in a GoFundMe for healing, relocation, and a security detail. Like, and you know that Steve G, he's pissed off too because they were kept out of the loop. This case was not only hidden from us, it was hidden from the victims' families. Not just Gonzalez's, all of them. And if the state and the Latah County prosecuting attorney, old Santa Bill Thompson, if he's going to hide it from the victims' families, imagine exactly what type of case this is and exactly how sloppy the investigation was if he's going to hide it from these victims' family members as well as us. And I'm going to say this again, guys. This is going to go down as the most non transparent true crime case in the history of all true crime cases. Delphi was the same way, and so was Karen Reed to an extent. I mean, poor Richard Allen, that they wouldn't allow no media in at all. So if it had been for Andrea Burkhart and a few others, we wouldn't have known what happened in that courtroom. And poor Richard Allen, he was tried in the dark. He was sentenced in the dark, all because of Judge Gall. And from where I'm sitting at right now, Bill Thompson is worse than Judge Gall. Because from day one, this entire investigation was sloppy, back ass words. This is the first time I've ever heard of, instead of doing the investigation first and then arresting the suspect, they arrest the suspect first and then do the investigation. Like they were trying to find bits and pieces to where they could bury Brian while he was in jail. That just goes to show you how sloppy everything is. And then these people that Bill Thompson was subpoenaing from Pennsylvania, like Allison Ackerman. I don't know who that is. It might have been maybe an acquaintance of Brian's. There was no stalking in this case. Bill Thompson said it himself, that there was no proof of connection to the victims. There was no motive. There was no stalking. But yet, the day of sentencing, you have Olivia Gonzalez standing up there saying, "Oh, how did it feel to stalk my sisters?" Even though Bill Thompson had already debunked that months ago, she had the audacity to stand up, "How did it feel to stalk my sisters?" There's that freaking stalking narrative again, which was debunked and thrown out by Bill Thompson. And just because a car pings around an area doesn't mean the car is anywhere near the house. Yeah, the car pinged 23 times in the area, but not in the area of the house. I'm half tempted to go back to the beginning of this case and break it all down again to show the hypocrisy and the sloppiness of this investigation. The PCA was junk. And I'll break that junk piece of PCA down again. Because how can you open your door 3 times in the night and then look out and see the killer walking towards you and looked at you and then walked out the door, and you said that he had bushy eyebrows, but yet in your text messages you said he had a ski mask on. If he had a ski mask on, you wouldn't be able to see his eyebrows. I hope everyone has a good Thursday. And apologize for my rant. I just had to get this out because of all the hypocrisy in this case. and it irritates the crap on me that on how Brian was railroaded. But please leave a like, hit that subscribe button. Make sure you click the bell notification for all my new uploads, and go ahead and leave a comment down below on your thoughts and your opinions on the stuff I just had to say. This is True Crime Unleashed. I'm out, guys. Peace.